February 23, 1945, Mount Suribachi, Ojima. The pencil trembled in Superior Private Tadashi Yamamoto's hand as he scrawled what he believed would be his final entry in the diary hidden beneath volcanic ash in his bunker. The Americans have brought demons from hell, metal beasts that breathe fire like the dragons of ancient legend. We cannot comprehend such weapons. Through a narrow observation slit carved into volcanic rock, he had just witnessed something that shattered everything the Imperial Japanese Army had taught him about modern warfare. A Sherman tank, indistinguishable from dozens of others supporting the Marine advance, had suddenly erupted in a torrent of liquid fire. The stream of burning napalm consumed 3 concealed pillboxes in seconds. Incinerating defenders who never knew the approaching tank carried anything more than its standard 75mm cannon. In the suffocating darkness of the tunnel system beneath Mount Suribachi, 2,000 Japanese defenders of the Tendo and 9th Division listened to screams echoing through the passages. What they didn't know, what their military doctrine had never prepared them for, was that American ingenuity had transformed ordinary tanks into weapons that would fundamentally break the Japanese defensive strategy across the Pacific. The crisis began on Bougainville, January 30th. 1944. The Hornet's Nest, a complex of interconnected Japanese bunkers, had resisted every conventional assault for weeks. Marine casualties mounted as portable flamethrower operators attempted to approach within their weapons' 40-yard range. The M1A1 portable flamethrower carried just 5 gallons of fuel and exposed its operator to concentrated enemy fire. The statistics were devastating. Flamethrower operators had an average battlefield life expectancy of 4 minutes. Their units suffered 92% casualty rates. They were priority targets for every Japanese rifleman who understood that killing the flamethrower operator meant survival for their bunker complex. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Hart of the 74th Tank Battalion watched another Marine flamethrower team get cut down 30 yards from their objective. His subsequent report would provide historians with the genesis of American flame tank development. The portable flamethrower represents our most effective bunker reduction weapon, he wrote, yet its employment guarantees near certain death for the operator. We must find a method to deliver flame while protecting the operator. Hart's field modification on New Caledonia was crude but revolutionary. His maintenance crews removed the bow machine gun from an M3A1 Stuart light tank and installed a Canadian Ronson flamethrower through the pistol port. The fuel tank, holding just 10 gallons where ammunition had been stored, gave the system exactly 20 seconds of fire. At the Hornet's Nest, the improvised flame tank destroyed 28 Japanese bunkers in a single afternoon. The crew suffered no casualties. The Japanese defenders, who had carefully calculated fields of fire to stop infantry approaches, had no contingency for a flamethrower that could engage from beyond effective rifle range while being immune to their machine gun fire. May 15th, 1944. Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. In a heavily guarded compound, Colonel George F. Unum assembled his development team. The Chemical Warfare Service officer had been given unlimited resources by Admiral Chester Nimitz after reviewing Hart's Bougainville report. Unum's team included CBCs from the 1117th Naval Construction Battalion, who volunteered to work 75-hour weeks. The challenge was monumental. Japanese bunkers were now being constructed to prevent tanks from approaching within 100 yards. The fuel capacity of 10 gallons meant a tank could engage just 2 or 3 targets before withdrawing to refuel. The solution would be designated CBH-1, Chemical Battalion Hawaii 1. The specifications were daunting: 170 gallons of fuel capacity, an 80 to 100-yard range, and 2 minutes of continuous fire capability. The system required completely rewiring the tank's electrical system, installing 1,100 electrical connections, and fabricating a false gun barrel to maintain deception. The fuel mixture required extensive experimentation. Pure gasoline dissipated too quickly. The solution came from Harvard chemist Louis Fazer's invention, napalm, a thickening agent that transformed gasoline into a sticky, burning gel. The optimal mixture, 94% gasoline, 6% napalm powder, created a substance that burned at 1004. June 15, 1944. D-Day at Saipan. The 2nd and 4th Marine Divisions stormed ashore, expecting fierce resistance from 32,000 Japanese defenders, double what American intelligence had predicted. What neither side knew was that 24 M3A1 Satan flame tanks were about to land, introducing the Japanese to a terrifying new kind of mechanized warfare. Lieutenant General Yoshitsugu Saito, commanding the Japanese 31st Army, had spent 6 months fortifying Saipan according to doctrine dating back to 1909, a creed that emphasized aggressive counterattack. To the Japanese spirit, passive defense was dishonorable. Captain Sakai Oba with the 18th Infantry Regiment later wrote, "We had prepared for everything: naval bombardment, aerial attack, tank assault. We had contingency plans for American flamethrowers based on China, but we assumed these would be carried by infantry we could shoot before they got within range. Nobody imagined the Americans would mount flamethrowers on tanks." The first Satan tank engagement came at 0943 hours June 16th near Sharan-Kanoa. Lance Corporal Toshio Takahashi, manning a concealed Type 92 heavy machine gun, watched a Sherman tank advance. His bunker had shrugged off naval bombardment. "I watched the tank approach to within 100 meters. He testified after the war. I was preparing to fire at the infantry when suddenly the tank erupted in flame. Not a shell, a continuous stream of liquid fire. It struck Sergeant Yamada's bunker. The fire entered through the gun slit. 10 seconds of screaming, then silence." The psychological impact tore through Japanese lines. At Hell's Pocket, Major Koshi Yoshida, commanding the 36th Infantry Regiment's 2nd Battalion, received panicked reports. His adjutant, Lieutenant Hiroshi Ito, recorded in the battalion diary, "The men report tanks that shoot streams of fire. Flames enter our bunkers through ports and slits. Men not burned suffocate. There is no defense." Yoshida's response, dictated by tradition, was to order his men to display the Yamato spirit and die at their posts. But Bushido offered no solution to liquid fire. Unlike German or Soviet doctrine, tactical withdrawal was unthinkable in Japanese culture. Private Kenji Suzuki, one of only 13 survivors from a company of 78, later described the collapse. "When word spread that flame tanks were coming, men who had sworn to die for the emperor began abandoning their posts. We had been taught that death in battle was glorious, but there was no glory in being burned alive." The Satan tanks at Saipan consumed 45,000 gallons of napalm in 25 days. Once held in reserve, flame tank crews soon found themselves indispensable. Infantry refused to advance without their fire. The 8 M4A3 Shermans, equipped with CBH-1 flamethrowers that landed on Iwo Jima, represented the 2nd generation of the weapon. Each carried 290 gallons of napalm, with an effective range of 150 yards at 300 pounds per square inch of pressure. General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, commanding 21,000 defenders, had studied Saipan. His plan for Iwo Jima specifically addressed flame weapons. Bunkers must be built beyond flame range, with multiple exits to prevent entrapment. His engineers carved 18 kilometers of tunnels through volcanic rock. Ventilation shafts, zigzagging passages, and alternate escape routes showed careful adaptation. But Kuribayashi had calculated based on the Satan tank's 80-yard range, not the CBH-1's 50 yards. February 21st, 1945. The Deepwood 2 at Iwo Jima. Tank Commander Staff Sergeant Robert Watson described the first clash. "We approached caves at the base of Suribachi. Infantry had been trying to clear them for 6 hours. We pulled up 120 yards beyond Japanese anti-tank range and fired a 15-second burst. The flame followed the tunnel system. Smoke vented from spider holes 50 yards away. Superior Private Shigeo Hayashi, trapped below, gave the only Japanese account in 1975. Orange light filled the tunnel ahead. The flame moved like a living thing, chasing every passage. Men tried to run, but fire moved faster. The screaming lasted perhaps 10 seconds. The northern plateau of Aoyajima contained Hill 38-2, Turkey Knob, and the amphitheater positions bound by tunnels and interlocking fields of fire. Colonel Thomas Warnham, commanding the 27th Marines, made a decision that would become standard doctrine. No infantry assault would begin until flame tanks had suppressed the objective. The Flame Dragon, commanded by Sergeant William Adamson, led the assault on Turkey Knob on March 3rd. Adamson's crew had perfected reconnaissance by fire, short bursts that revealed hidden positions when smoke vented from concealed openings. In 4 hours, Dragon exposed and eliminated 27 Japanese positions. Captain Hiroaki Nishimura of the 2nd Mixed Brigade quickly noticed a weakness. After roughly 60 seconds of firing, tanks were forced to withdraw and repressurize. We instructed our men to count the seconds. When the count reached 50, soldiers in secondary positions would prepare to strike. This adaptation led to the first flame tank destroyed by Japanese action. On March 50th, after a 55-second burst, a Japanese soldier emerged just 30 feet away and hurled a satchel charge onto the engine deck. 2 crew members were killed. The American response was immediate. Flame tanks would operate in pairs, one providing conventional support while the other discharged fire. This tactical evolution became standard doctrine. March 9, 1945. The Gorge, Uejima. This narrow ravine concealed General Kuribayashi's headquarters, 75 feet underground, with 5-foot reinforced concrete walls sheltering 1,000 naval troops under Captain Sanji Uno. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Chambers requested every available flame tank. At dawn, 6 Shermans, the entire operational inventory, surrounded the gorge's entrances and fired in sequence, maintaining continuous flame for 12 minutes. They consumed 1,800 gallons of napalm. Corporal Masawa Watanabe, one of only 7 survivors, testified. Fire came from all directions. It entered every cave, every tunnel, every position. Men fled deeper, but flame followed, consuming oxygen. Captain Ino ordered counterattack, but men refused. For the first time, Japanese soldiers disobeyed direct orders. The deployment of the 713th Tank Battalion, provisional flamethrower, to Okinawa marked the final evolution of U.S. doctrine. This entire battalion, 54 Sherman tanks converted to flamethrowers, had trained for 4 months at Schofield Barracks. Their equipment represented the pinnacle of flame tank technology. The POACWS H5 system mounted a projector coaxially with the main gun, allowing tanks to retain conventional armament. Hidden inside a false barrel, it discharged napalm at 4.4 gallons per second. April 7, 1945. The 713th landed at Hagushi Beaches with 53 operational tanks. They faced General Mitsuru Ushijima's 32nd Army, 110,000 troops defending 60 miles of tunnels through the Shuri Line. April 19th became the Black Day of American armor. The 27th Infantry Division, supported by 30 tanks, 8 of them flamethrowers, assaulted Kakazu Ridge. Japanese defenders lured the tanks into a kill zone, then unleashed 47mm anti-tank guns, magnetic mines, and suicide squads. 22 American tanks were destroyed in just 4 hours, the single greatest tank loss of the Pacific War. 3 were flamethrowers, their burning napalm pillars marking the battlefield in black smoke. Captain Robert Williams of Company A, 713th, later wrote, "The Japanese never developed a counter to flame tanks. They threw everything against all tanks indiscriminately. Our losses were proportional. Flame tanks that engaged before being hit eliminated objectives as effectively as ever. Within 72 hours, replacements arrived. Tactics evolved. Flame tanks advanced behind conventional armor, with infantry providing close security and artillery suppressing anti-tank fire. May 12th, 19th, 1945. Sugarloaf Hill anchored the western Shuri line, with Half Moon and Horseshoe Hills forming a deadly interlocking complex. The 6th Marine Division suffered 2,662 casualties, trying to take the position. On May 17th, Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Sabel coordinated Operation Blowtorch, 12 flame tanks firing simultaneously on all 3 hills, preventing mutual support with 20 minutes of continuous fire while Marines advanced. Sergeant Michael O'Brien, commander of Devil's Breath, recalled, "We pulled into position 150 yards from Sugarloaf. The Japanese could see us. At 065, we opened fire. The flame arced through the air, splashed across the hillside, and poured into every hole. I fired for 45 seconds, then rotated back while another tank took over." Private First Class Yukio Miyamoto, one of just 11 survivors from 400 defenders, remembered, "We knew flame tanks were coming. Their engines sounded different. Colonel Mita ordered us to the deepest bunkers, but flame found us through ventilation shafts. Those near the vents died instantly. Others suffocated. I survived by crawling through bodies to the furthest corner." May 29, 1945, Shuri Castle, ancient seat of the Ryukyu Kingdom, had become General Ushijima's command post. Beneath its limestone foundations, a 3-level complex housed 1,000 staff officers. 6 flame tanks from Company A approached from 3 directions. At 1400 hours, they fired in coordinated sequence for 18 minutes, consuming 2,100 gallons of napalm. Colonel Hiromichi Yahara, Ushijima's operations officer, described the horror. "Our post was 20 meters underground, protected by 3 meters of concrete. We believed ourselves safe. Then the shafts glowed orange. The temperature rose so fast that papers burst into flame. General Ushijima ordered evacuation, but every exit was fire." The 7 and 13th's final statistics from Okinawa revealed the brutal efficiency of mechanized flame. Japanese dead 4,788 confirmed. Prisoners 49 some 30 and 88 confirmed. Prisoners 41 knocked out, 26 repaired and returned to service. Napalm consumed 200,000 gallons. The casualty exchange ratio, roughly 59-88 of Maui, surpassed any ground unit in the Pacific. Reports often cited 40-1 effectiveness when factoring positions destroyed and strategic impact. Japan's failure to counter flame tanks reflected institutional collapse. Doctrine unchanged since 1905 still preached spiritual superiority over material power. Training manuals declared material superiority must be overcome by spiritual superiority. Colonel Masanobu Tsuji admitted in 1962, "We knew Americans had developed flame tanks after Saipan, but admitting the need for countermeasures meant confessing Yamato's spirit could not overcome American technology. Such admission was impossible." Desperate late-war projects attempted solutions. Project Mizuchi water curtains to block fire. The water evaporated instantly. Project Ishikawa double walls with crushed rock. Napalm flowed around. Project Egabaruma ventilation fans. The blades melted. Increased airflow drew flames deeper. None worked. In 1985, historian Dan King interviewed 100 Japanese veterans who had faced flame tanks. Their testimony remains the most haunting record of fire on the battlefield. Corporal Shoyo Kondo, burned at Sugarloaf, wrote, "Death held no fear. We were already dead by choice, seeking honorable death, but flame tanks offered no honor. You cannot fight fire, you can only burn or run." Sergeant Major Yoshio Yamada of the 32nd Army reflected, "I served since 1937. Faced Chinese, British, Australians, Americans. Nothing compared to flame tanks. They stripped combat from war, replaced it with extermination. Yet flame tanks also scarred their own operators. Unlike conventional crews who fired shells and saw only knew exactly what was happening. Some crews wore earplugs just to block it out. Veterans Administration records later showed flame tank operators suffered PTSD at rates 40% higher than conventional crews. The program remained classified until 1958. General Douglas MacArthur claimed flame tanks saved 100,000 American lives in the Pacific. Admiral Chester Nimitz declared they broke Japanese will to resist more effectively than any weapon except the atomic bomb. The planned invasion of Japan allocated 720 flame tanks. By August 1945, production reached 60 per month, with 2 million gallons of napalm stockpiled. The 703rd Battalion's reports shaped doctrine into Korea and Vietnam. The Marine Corps Manual FM 11-4 Flame Warfare 1955 drew directly from Iwo Jima. In Korea, 5 Shermans repeated the formula against Chinese bunkers. In Vietnam, M67 tanks saw use until political sensitivities forced withdrawal in 1970. The POA-CWS H-5 system embodied American engineering. Capacity 290 gallons of napalm. Pressure 330-75 PIFC, range 1 to 5 pylon 50 yards. Discharge 4.4 gallons per second. Traverse 207. Composition 94% gasoline, 6% aluminum naphthenate palmitate, burning at 1,500-2,000 pft for up to 20 seconds after impact. Concealed within dummy 75mm barrels, these projectors made every Sherman a potential flamethrower. Japanese troops hesitated to fire, fearing fire in return. Though only 54 operated on Okinawa, interrogations revealed defenders believed hundreds stalked the battlefield. June 1945 brought the flame extension system 400-foot armored hoses, allowing infantry to project fire beyond tank-accessible ground. Technical Sergeant Paul Rodriguez explained, "We turned every flame tank into a supply hub. 4 squads could operate from one. We called it distributed destruction." Private Tetsuo Nakamura, Captain June 18th, recalled, "We dug deep, made smaller entrances, nothing mattered. Flame found us through the cracks we didn't know existed." On June 23, 1945, organized resistance collapsed. General Ushijima committed seppuku, confessing, "The enemy's material superiority has overcome our spiritual strength." The development timeline tells the story. January 1944, first improvisation, 10 gallons, 60-yard range. June 1944, Satan tanks, 70 gallons, 80-yard range. February 1945, CBH-1, 290 gallons, 150 yards. April 1945, POA-CWS H-5, 300 gallons, 120. In total, 354 flame tanks, 605,000 gallons of napalm, over 22,000 Japanese killed. Major Yoshitaka, a survivor of Iwo Jima, testified, "Flame tanks didn't just defeat us militarily. They invalidated our entire concept of warfare. We prepared to die beautifully for the Emperor. Instead, we died anonymously, burned in caves." Captain Shimura added in 1951, "We weren't defeated by soldiers alone. We were defeated by American industry, by machines that killed faster than men." By June 1945, more than 10,000 Americans had trained on flame tanks. Yet Imperial headquarters dismissed early reports as propaganda. That Americans deployed hundreds never occurred to us, admitted Lieutenant Colonel Takashi Watanabe. Historians later estimated flame tanks saved 50,000, 100,000 U.S. lives. Every position they cleared would otherwise have required frontal assault at 30–50% losses. Master Sergeant Anthony Romano, who commanded 3 flame tanks, reflected, "People ask if I'm proud. I'm proud I saved Marine lives. I'm not proud of burning men alive. What we did was necessary, not noble." Colonel unmarked in 1970. We stumbled into the perfect weapon-target combination. The Japanese built defenses proof against every weapon except the one we hadn't planned. They prepared for rifles, shells, bombs. We brought liquid fire. General James Mattis in 2010. The 713th proved you don't fight fair. You fight to win. They faced an enemy that welcomed death and defeated them with a weapon that made death terrible. That's how you save American lives. Corporal Eugene Patterson, the last flame tank veteran, died in 2018. The Japanese wouldn't surrender. They'd fight from caves with no hope, just to kill one more American. We could have lost thousands digging them out. Instead, we burned them out in hours. Given the choice, I'd do it again, because every Japanese we burned meant an American went home. The transformation of Shermans into flamethrowers symbolized a shift in warfare, from combat to industrial annihilation. Japanese soldiers who sought noble death met only fire. The numbers tell one side of the story. Behind them are screams in tunnels, crews haunted by echoes, and islands turned into crematoriums. Flame tank warfare was never glorious, only efficient. Yet its efficiency hastened Japan's defeat and spared countless lives. By turning fire into an industrial weapon, America transformed defense into a trap. The Japanese prepared for warriors and met engineers. They prepared for battle and met extermination. They prepared for honor and met immolation. Flame tanks didn't just burn bodies. They incinerated a philosophy that spirit could triumph over steel. Napalm burned a 2000 Fepethereth, and Bushido could not change that. The Japanese infantry never knew a Sherman was a flamethrower until liquid fire poured into their position. By then, it was too late for anything but screaming.